5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today is Wednesday, August 6, 2025, and you are tuned into War Notes Live, delivering nonstop, no frills news that truly matters. Now, breaking updates from home and abroad. Tonight, the world is on edge. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has announced that Russia is ending its ban on intermediate range nuclear missiles, effectively abandoning remaining arms control commitments. He cited NATO deployments and called U.S. warnings inflammatory, vowing further escalation. In response, President Trump repositioned two U.S. nuclear submarines near Russia this week, citing Medvedev's rhetoric as justification. In the Sea of Japan, Russia and China have launched major naval exercises, quote, Joint Sea 2025, end quote, involving submarine rescue drills, missile launch rehearsals, and anti submarine warfare operations, signaling deepening military alignment. Meanwhile, Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, just wrapped a reportedly, quote, constructive, end quote, meeting with Putin in Moscow. The White House says Trump could meet with both Putin and Zelensky as soon as next week, ahead of an August 8th ceasefire deadline he imposed. Failure to comply would trigger sweeping secondary sanctions targeting India, China, and EU nations trading with Russia. In the Middle East, Iran recently carried out missile strikes on Al Udeid air base in Qatar and drone attacks on U.S. and Israeli linked sites across the region. Iran has also repeatedly threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, a vital global energy choke point flowing with 20 to 25% of the world's oil. While closure hasn't occurred yet, oil markets remain on high alert. Closer to home, U.S. Army leaders warn that America is slipping behind in drone and AI warfare technologies, especially compared to drone tactics experimented with in Ukraine. Without immediate investment, U.S. troops may face battlefield disadvantages in coming conflicts. Now, if you can take a moment, if you wish to do so, please subscribe now with a single click because your support ensures more of this vital information continues uninterrupted. Now, here are some definitions that I feel that you, as my listeners, should know because there are some folks, believe it or not, so much political drama occurring that some folks are not aware of definitions and they try to confuse certain folks who are not into the political game like that, or they try to confuse folks with words that they may or may not understand, and they don't explain these things. They can explain everything else, but they don't explain the most important. So here we go. What is intermediate range ballistic missiles, called IRBMs? Well, it's a missile with a range between 3,000 to 5,500 kilometers. Russia just said it won't abide by previous limits anymore. What are secondary sanctions? Secondary sanctions are punitive economic measures applied not only to Russia, but to third party nations doing business with Russia, designed to isolate its economy more broadly. And some people might not know anything about the Strait of Hormuz, but the Strait of Hormuz is a narrow sea route through which nearly 20 to 25% of global oil and LNG passes. Shutting it can disrupt global oil markets instantly. Now, those of you who are readers of Twitter and TikTok may cheer Headlines about Trump and Apple announcing a $100 billion US investment to boost manufacturing, praising it as a win for working Americans. But critics argue that while Apple and firms like Corning and Applied Materials receive exemptions and perks, most of that capital will flow into corporate supply chains, not into higher wages or lower prices for ordinary families. Meanwhile, tariffs are slashing benefits to social services. So ask yourself, where's that money really going? Now, that sums the major developments for tonight: nuclear posturing with Russia, Iran's regional escalation, U.S. technological lag, sanctions expansion, and corporate headlines that may miss the bigger picture. Now, for tonight's bonus, I have a World War II era recipe for tough times. And if you've been listening this far, please grab your pen and your paper, because here are two simple wartime recipes using pantry staples. So if you all have to pause the live, I'm not sure if you all can do that on your end. But if you are not able to, then I'll give you all a moment, because this is live radio indeed. The live stream will be available after the broadcast is over. So that's the great part about YouTube. And I can appreciate the modern day society for that much. Indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So for your first bonus wartime recipe tonight, potato and cabbage hash. Potato and cabbage hash. Yum, yum, yum. So what you do first is you saute some diced potatoes, right? You could do this in your casserole, whatever you got going on. Saute your diced potatoes and onions together, and a little bit of shredded cabbage, and just a little bit of oil or butter, whatever you have on hand. And then you season with a little salt and pepper, simmer it until tender, and serve it hot. You can serve it next to some rice. If you have it, you could just serve it up by itself. However, you can do it. And if you have a piece of bread, you can even toast that and pair it with that. It serves a big meal for cheap, budget friendly, easy to make, especially when those times where you're like, oh, I don't feel like cooking. I don't want to do anything. Just please, whatever, you know. But if you don't want to do something of that sort, how about a lentil stew? That's our second bonus recipe for tonight. You can simmer some dried lentils with diced carrots and onions and garlic and broth or water. And then you can add a splash of vinegar or lemon juice at the end for flavor. And it'll give you a little bit of bulk with some protein. And guess what? It doesn't cost a lot. So, with that, that concludes your nonstop factual intel from War Notes Live. Be sure, if you wish, to subscribe in the app here. It is free, it takes just a moment, but helps us bring you more content like this. And I thank you for listening. I am signing off now, and it is 9:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. Now, listeners, please stay vigilant always. Stay informed. Thank you all so much for listening. I thank you all for being here.